Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sonaka Vacha Atva Swarkita Spritha Tattino Yudhishthiro Dharma Vritam Vachitaha Sahanuji Pratyavaruta Bhujanaha Atam Pravrata Kimaka Rashitataha.
Hare Krishna. Sonaka Muni asked, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthir, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness.
Sutta Uvacha Vamsam Kuru Vamsa Davagni Nirtatam Samorhaiveta Bhavano Harihi Niveshayitva Nija Rajya Tasvaro Yudhishtiram Pritam Mana Bahuvaha.
Sutta Goswami said, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaja Yudhishthir in his own kingdom and after restoring the Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger.
Text 3. Nishamya Bhishmaktam Atha Chutokratam Pravita Vigyana Vidhuta Vibramaha Shashasagamindra Ivajita Shrayaha Paridhyupatan Panatam Anujanuvartitaha.
Maharaj Yudhishthir, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishmadeva and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers.
Text 4. Kamam Vavarsha Parjanayaha Sarva Kama Dukkamahi Sishikchuhu Sma Vrajan Gavaha Paya Sodhashvatir Muda.
During the reign of Maharaja Yudhishthir, the clouds showered all the waters that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk.
Text 5. Nadyaha Samudra Giryaha Savanashpati Virudaha Balanti Oshadhayaha Sarvaha Kamam Amrutu Tasyevai.
The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion.
Text 6. Nadyo Vyadyaha Klesha Deva Bhutama Hetavaha Ajata Shatra Abhavam Janutanam Rajni Karhichit.
Because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, disease, or excessive heat or cold.
Text 7. Shitva Hastinapure Masan Katpayan Harihi Suhradam Cha Vishokaya Svashu Chapriya Kamayaya.
Sri Hari Lord Krishna resided at Hastinapur for a few months to pacify his relatives and please his own sister Subhadra.
Text 8. Amantraya Chabhyanujnataha Parishvajyabhivadyatam Aruroha Ratham Paschit Parishvakato Ivaditaha.
Afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart and the king gave it, the Lord offered his respects to Maharaja Yudhishthir by bowing down at his feet, and the king embraced him. After this, the Lord, being embraced by others and receiving their obeisances, got into his chariot.
Next 9 to 10. Subhadro Draupadi Kunti Virata Tanya Tata Gandhari Dhritarashtrascha Yishtu Gatumo Yamo Rodakradascha Dumyascha Striyo Matsya Sutadayaha Nasariho Vimu Vyanto Viraham Shangadha Vanaha.
At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakula, Sahadeva, Bhimsena, Dhumya, Dahumya, and Satyavati all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord Krishna.
Text 11 to 12. Satsangam Mukta Shango Patum Nasta Ate Buddha Kirtyamanam Yaso Yasya Sakridakranya Rochanam Tasmin Yastadiya Prataha Sahiran Viraham Katham Darshanam Sparsha Samlabha Shanyasana Bhojanaihi.
The intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation, for they had been intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him.
Text 13. Sarve te nimarshe akshe tamanu druta chetasaha vikshanta sneha sambadha vichalus tatra tatraha.
All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity.
Text 14. Nyanrudhana Udgada Pashpam Autakam Yad Devakisute Viryati Agaranna Bhadram Viktisyat Badhava Striyaha.
The female relatives, whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure.
Text 15. Mridanga Shankha Breyascha Vina Panava Gomukha Dhunryu Anaka Gandhadya Nidu Dandadhyayastatha.
While the Lord was departing from the palace of Hastinapur, different types of drums, like the mrudanga, dhola, nagara, dudandari, and dudumbi, and flutes of different types, the veena, gomukha, and beri, all sounded together to show him honor.
16. Rasada Shikhara Ruduha kurunayodidrakshaya Vavarsu kusame Krishnan Prema Vrita Smitekshanaha.
Out of a loving desire to see the Lord, the royal ladies of the Kurus got up on top of the palace, and smiling with affection and shyness, they showered flowers upon the Lord.
Text 17. Sitata patram jagraha muktadama vibhushitam ratnadan dandam gudakeshaha priyaha priyayatmasyaha.
At that time, Arjuna, the great warrior and conqueror of sleep, who is the intimate friend of the most beloved Supreme Lord, took up an umbrella which had a handle of jewels and was embroidered with lace and pearls.
Text 18. Udhavaha satyakischeva vyajena paramabhute vikirya manaha kusmai rajye muthopatihi patihi.
Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans, and the Lord, as the master of Madhu, seated on scattered flowers, commanded them along the road.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Gaurangi, Gopi Mataji, and Nayan Mataji,
Hare
for
Krishna,
your
Prabhu.
beautiful Naina Mataji, for your beautiful recitation. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So dear devotees, welcome to today's chat session. Today we start a new chapter, the departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka. So before we discuss, we'll recite the Mangala Charanam prayers. Please free to join in beyond your muted mics. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Nasyacha Dishatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So chapter 10, entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka. And in today's session, we'll be discussing text number 1 to 3. Now, there's something interesting about this chapter. The philosophy of the Bhagavatam is the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that service in separation is the highest type of devotional ecstasy. We will notice in the Bhagavatam something very particular. And this has been noticed and explained by the great Vaishnava Acharyas and Vaishnava scholars, in that there will be places in the Bhagavatam that apparently it would seem it's not an event of particular great significance or note compared to maybe other events. But the Bhagavatam gives it great focus and great significance. And that is events and incidents where we see the separation and the feelings of separation between the Lord and his devotees. We've taken note that previously Krishna has tried to leave Hastinapur to go back to his kingdom in Dwaraka. But on a few occasions, Krishna has been stopped. He was stopped by Uttara, who came running to him for protection when a womb was attacked by the weapon released by Ashvatthama. And then so the Lord has been stopped a few times. And finally, in this chapter, there's no obstacle and he departs. And here we see a very nice description, and Srila Vyasadeva and Shukdev Goswami, they all focus on this. And this particular incident is in the first verse, it asks a question. He asks a question. So this chapter starts off by a question, much like most of the Bhagavatam. Just want to make sure everyone's muted. Bhagavatam is full of questions and answers. The devotees ask the questions and it invokes great Swami a question. And he asked the question. The first verse, Shonaka Muni asked, his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhisthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. So, very beautifully, Shonaka Rishi, Shonaka Muni, is drawing out a very important point. How do the devotees of the Lord rule? This is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the beautiful story of the personality of Godhead. And as Srila Prabhupada explains, when we talk about Krishna, Krishna does not only mean the threefold bending form of Shyama Sundar. It means Krishna, his devotees, abode, his name, his form, his lila, his pastimes. So Bhagavad Dharma. In Bhagavatam, we learn about Bhagavad Dharma. So including in that Bhagavad Dharma is the Dharma of how a kingdom is ruled. So Shonaka Rishi is drawing out how does a great devotee, and you see in this verse, verse 1, Maharaj Yudhishthira is described as Varishtaha, the greatest among all religious men. And maybe we could read the purport very quickly. Anyone likes to read the purport?
I can read it.
Yes, read, Jyoti Mataji. Do you want to read?
Maharaj Yudhishthir was the greatest of all men of religion. Thus he was not at all inclined to fight with his cousins for the sake of enjoying the kingdom. He fought for the right cause because the kingdom of Hastinapur was his rightful inheritance and his cousins wanted to usurp it for themselves. He fought, therefore, for the right cause under the guidance of Lord Shri Krishna, but he could not enjoy the results of his victory because his cousins were all killed in the fight. He therefore ruled over the kingdom as a matter of duty, associated with his younger brothers. The inquiry was important for Sonaka Rishi, who wanted to know about the behavior of Maharaj Yudhishthir when he was at ease to enjoy the kingdom.
Thank you, Jyoti Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So the one important point here is the devotees of the Lord, they are not neglectful of their duty. And they perform whatever is asked of them as a matter of duty. We will see in the Krishna consciousness, recently I was reading about Srila Prabhupada, and in the statements he was making, he mentioned the word duty numerous times. He says, I was living in Vrindavan, I was peaceful, and I was happy. So someone may ask, why did I leave this beautiful place, Vrindavan, to come to the West? And Prabhupada says, it's because of my duty. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, he ruled not because of any sense of power or enjoyment of the kingdom, but as a matter of duty. And this is very, very important aspect of Vedic culture, which differs from Western culture. Western culture is very much about one's own rights, one's right for enjoyment, one's right. Everything is about one's rights. But Vedic culture is everything about one's duty. Very much about one's duty. So this question is being asked, and Sutta Goswami will reply. So we start off the second verse, Sutta Uvacha. I won't read the Sanskrit because we've already done that. So Sutta Goswami said, Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthira in his own kingdom, and after restoring the Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger. So we'll read the purport and then we'll comment. Anyone would like to volunteer to read the purport?
Can I read the purport, Prabhuji?
Ah, yes, Puja Mataji. Lovely to you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
This world is compared to a forest fire caused by the cohesion of bamboo bushes. Such a forest fire takes place automatically. For bamboo cohesion occurs without external cause. Similarly, in the material world, the wrath of those who want to lord it over material nature interacts, and the fire of war takes place, exhausting the unwanted population. Such fires of wars take place, and the Lord has nothing to do with them. But because he wants to maintain the creation, he desires the mass of the people to follow the right path of self-realization, which enables the living beings to enter into the kingdom of God. The Lord wants the suffering of human beings to come back home, back to him, and cease to suffer the threefold material pangs. The whole plan of creation is made in that way, and one who does not come to his senses suffers in the material world by pangs inflicted by the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord, therefore, wants his bona fide representative to rule the world. Lord Sri Krishna descended to establish this sort of regime and to kill the unwanted persons who have nothing to do with his plan. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of the Lord, so that undesirable persons could get out of the world and a peaceful kingdom under his devotee would be established. The Lord was therefore fully satisfied when King Yudhishthira was on the throne and the seedling of the dynasty of Kuru in the person of Maharaja Parikshit was saved.
Thank you, Puja Mata.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Again, a beautiful verse and some very nice words used. The first and what most striking point for me on this verse is that Krishna was very pleased. Krishna was very pleased seeing Maharaj Yudhishthira re-established in his kingdom and a devotee, his devotee, ruling the world. Everything we learn from Bhagavatam is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. Everything we do should be for the pleasure of Krishna. So Krishna wanted this battle to take place, and Krishna wanted his devotee to rule. Because when a devotee is ruling, the main consciousness of a devotee is not to enjoy the facilities as a ruler, but the main consciousness of a devotee is how the citizens can revive their Krishna consciousness and ultimately become free from the material world and go back to Godhead. In the 5th canto, Maharaj Rishabdev, he says, no one should become a teacher, no one should become a parent, no one should become a guru, no one should become a ruler unless they can release their dependence from the cycle of birth and death. That's how a parent sees as his main duty. What can I do so that this is the last birth of my child? The teacher thinks, how can I educate the child so this is his last birth in the material world? And a ruler should also think like that. How shall I govern my kingdom so that this is the last birth of all my citizens? This is Vedic culture. This is how the superiors in Vedic culture think. The teachers, the rulers, the parents, the guru. That is their main focus. Because that is the ultimate plan of the Lord in the material world. As Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the plan of the Lord for this material world is such that all of the suffering living entities they can return back home, back to him. And Prabhupada says, the whole plan of creation is made in that way. So devotee means understanding the plan of the Lord. That's what devotee means. And how to fulfill the plan of the Lord so the Lord becomes pleased. Because when Krishna is pleased, then everything is perfect. Everyone becomes happy. So Krishna was very pleased, it says here. Krishna was very pleased. And what was the main reason? This is what Prabhupada is drawing out in the purport. He was not pleased just so that his devotee became king. No, Krishna doesn't have so interest. But Krishna's main pleasure is coming now that my devotee is ruling. Now the living entities are going to be liberated. And that's what Prabhupada talks about the forest fire. You know, the very first verse of the Guru Vastakam is Samsara Davan Nalalida Loka Chanaya Karuna Gana Ganatvam Praptasya Karyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravinda. This material world, it's compared to like a forest fire. And everyone is burning in this forest fire. But the spiritual master comes and extinguishes the forest fire. And we take shelter of the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So this is the gist and the crux of this verse. And Krishna is very pleased. He's pleased because his devotees are now going to liberate all the suffering souls. And now we move on to text number 3. Maharaj Yudhishthir, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge, because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Purport, there's 2 paragraphs. I want a volunteer to read the first paragraph and another volunteer.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I read?
Yes, you can read the first paragraph, Mataji, and then
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Can I read, Prabhu? Okay.
Okay, Baba, is it Bhagavati, Mataji?
Yes, but I think there was a Prabhuji who was also.
Yeah, I missed the
Let's
Prabhu.
get the Prabhuji done. Yeah, I'll be fine.
Who was it? Sounded like Girish Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. That's fine, Mataji. You can recite. That's all.
No,
right.
let Girish Prabhu do it. I always do sometimes. Don't worry. Hari.
Okay, let's go.
Hare Krishna. The modern English law of primogeniture, or the law of inheritance by the firstborn, was also prevalent in those days when Maharaj Yudhishthira ruled the earth and seas. In those days, the king of Hastinapur, now part of New Delhi, was the emperor of the world, including the seas, up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira's younger brothers were acting as his ministers and commanders of state, and there was full cooperation between the perfectly religious brothers of the king. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the ideal king or representative of Lord Shri Krishna to rule over the kingdom of earth, and was comparable to King Indra, the representative ruler of the heavenly planets. The demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varuna, and Vayu are representative kings of different planets of the universe, and similarly Maharaj Yudhishthira was also one of them, ruling over the kingdom of the earth. Maharaj Yudhishthira was not a typically an enlightened political leader of modern democracy. Maharaj Yudhishthira was instructed by Bhishma Dev and the infallible Lord also, and therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
The modern elected executive head of a state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened like Maharaj Yudhishthira, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. Therefore, there are so many states over the earth quarreling ideological differences or other selfish motives. But a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira had no ideology of his own. He had but to follow the instructions of the infallible Lord and the Lord's representative and the authorized agent Bhishmadev. It is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and the infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. Therefore, it was possible for Maharaj Yudhishthira to rule the whole world, including the seas, because the principles were infallible and universally applicable to everyone. The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we can follow the infallible authority. An imperfect human being cannot create an ideology acceptable to everyone. Only the perfect and the infallible can create a program which is applicable at every place and can be followed by all in the world. It is the person who rules and not the impersonal government. If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is the law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings or executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be trained person like Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he must have the full autocratic power to rule over the world. The conception of a world state can take shape only under the regime of a perfect king like Maharaj Yudhishthira. The world was happy in those days because there were kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira to rule over the world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Girish Prabhu. So in this verse, we see some very important instructions or guiding principles for what constitutes perfect government. And the key principles being outlined here is firstly that the king or the head of state, he should have complete control, meaning that it's not democratic, where different people have their say and there is management by committee. Srila Prabhupada, one notices in all of his writings, he is very critical of modern democracy. And what is Prabhupada's main criticism of modern democracy? There's a few. The first criticism Prabhupada levies is that modern democracy is based on votes. And the voters are unqualified. They do not have the proper qualifications to judge who is a suitable person or not. Their criteria for judging who is worthy is warped. So when unqualified persons vote, it is a certain outcome that their choice will be flawed. That's the first point. The second point about modern democracy is that the people who are putting themselves forward for potential candidates for head, they are just party leaders. They do not have any necessarily qualification. They themselves have elected like the Conservative Party. There are certain individuals of the Conservative Party, they will put forward a leader. So that's flawed. And then Prabhupada says something very interesting. He says, assuming in today's modern democracy, we do manage to find a Maharaj Yudhishthira who is enlightened, who has perfect knowledge, who is capable of ruling according to dharmic principles. He will be ineffective. Why will he be ineffective? Srila Prabhupada explains, because he does not have absolute authority. Everything is governed by the constitution and by parliament. And different members of parliament, they have their different ideologies. So modern democracy, or as we know it and experience in the world, although people proclaim it to be so great, the acharyas, they do not give much credibility to it. Autocracy. Vedic culture means autocracy. You have one ruler who is qualified, who has absolute say, that he will say, this is how it should be done. And that when he says this is how it should be done, as Prabhupada explains, it's not his own personal ideology. It's not his own personal idea of how things should be done, but that is coming from, Prabhupada says, a trained person. A trained person, and in this case, Maharaj Yudhisthira, he received personal instructions by the Mahajan, Bhishma Dev, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So this is what constitutes perfect government. This is the Vedic system of what will give us an ideal government, an ideal state. And we see, even in India, currently we have the Bharatiya Party who are ruling according to Hindu principles, but still, they cannot implement, even if they wanted to implement all of the principles as per Dharma Shastras, because they operate according to a constitution. And any time, if their voters, if they become in the majority, they can just overrule the king. So Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us very nice information. And Prabhupada says something in the first stanza, that Maharaj Yudhisthira, he was in the same category as Indra was the king of the heavenly planets, Chandra was king of the moon, Surya is king of the sun, Varuna is king of the ocean, Vayu is king of the wind. Maharaj Yudhisthira, he was king of the earth. He ruled over the earth, and he was on the same level, same category as the demigods, because he was fulfilling the same function. All of these different demigods, they are ruling under the direction of the Lord, and Maharaj Yudhisthira was ruling according to the direction of the Lord on this earthly planet. So there's no difference. Another interesting point is the verse talks not only about the earth. He ruled not only over the earth, but over all of the seas, the entire earthly kingdom. So the verses we studied today, very interesting. Srila Prabhupada's are very enlightening, Srila Prabhupada's purport. We should understand them, because sometimes people may ask us, does the Krishna consciousness movement have any idea of what is ideal government? Sometimes people like to talk about politics. People like to talk about, rulers and so on. And we should understand what is Bhagavad Dharma, and we should not be afraid to say, this is what Srimad Bhagavatam. We take direction from Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is what Srimad Bhagavatam says about ideal government, ideal ruling. And we should put forward our thoughts, not our personal thoughts, not our personal ideologies, but what Srimad Bhagavatam propounds. So I'll stop here, dear devotees, and we'll take any questions, comments, reflections that any one of you have about these 3 beautiful verses at the start of this chapter. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Namrata.
Adamut Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Pranam.
Prabhuji, very nicely explained. Thank you so much. I just wanted to share my reflection, Prabhuji. Although I'm a very fallen soul and I'm nowhere near all of the wonderful devotees. But Prabhuji, one of the things that just stuck in my head was when you said, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing. And you said, how do we ensure that Krishna is pleased and we are part of his plan? So I guess the reflection is every single day, how do I make sure that whatever I do in my life, I make sure that I think about, is Krishna pleased in this situation? Now, I know it's the most difficult thing in the world, but I guess my reflection is, how do I ensure that Krishna is pleased?
That's a very nice reflection, Namrata Mataji. Very nice. That's how a devotee thinks. How can I be please Krishna by my actions, my thoughts? Srila Prabhupada made special emphasis about Krishna's plan. A devotee should understand Krishna's plan. And Krishna's main plan in this material world is to capture the suffering souls and take them back to Godhead. So Prabhupada says, devotee, this is what Prabhupada taught us within the Krishna consciousness movement. A devotee is always thinking, scheming, considering, what can I do? What can I do to help those around me understand Krishna, surrender to Krishna, go back to Krishna? And obviously, as we know, there are some people more favorable than others. We don't try to ram Krishna consciousness down anyone's throat. We understand that everyone's on their journey. But at least in our mind, Prabhupada says, simply we're thinking how to do. And Prabhupada says, simply by thinking how to do, we become liberated. Simply by thinking how to execute Krishna's plan. So that was one particular, and obviously the details, everyday activities, and what I am doing now, is it pleasing to Krishna? Thank you very much for that, Namrata Mataji. Any other reflections by anyone? Okay. Let me just see if there's anything come up in the chat box. No, there's no questions or comments. So if there's no further reflections or comments or questions by anyone, I think we can finish today's session. Thank you very much, dear devotees, for your participation and your attendance and your patient listening. Hare Krishna. All glories to the service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpa
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Hare
so much.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.